Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. All of you out there in cyberspace, from where you are, we hope you're well, safe, and happy in all respects. In the times we're living in, it's not so easy to be happy in all respects. But the soul has nothing to do with the body and the mind. Therefore, if we come to the spiritual platform, we can taste happiness, unconditional happiness. And that spiritual platform is attained by becoming attached to hearing and chanting about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, especially when that comes from His pure devotee. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada highly recommended the Sri Caitanya-caritämrta for this purpose. In fact, he said this: in due course, Maha Pralaya, devastating floods, will inundate the entire universe. If you attempt to survive by swimming in that deluge, then do not neglect to take hold of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. Or, if you cannot hold all three, then release Bhagavad Gita. If necessary, you may also relinquish Srimad Bhagavatam, but under no circumstances release your hold on Sri Caitanya-caritämrta. For if this one book remains, then the flood can do no actual damage, because after it is subsided, the message of Shastra can be revived from Sri Caitanya-caritämrta alone, it being the essence of all Shastra. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaur Bhaktavinda Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktavinda Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktavinda. So, in our journey with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we reached the Madhya-lila, 5th chapter. Lord Chaitanya, in his journey by foot from Bengal to Jagannath Puri, he's reached the deity of Säksi-gopäla. And there, Lord Nityananda, who was accompanying him, told the story of the witness Gopal and the old Brahmana and young Brahmana who were traveling in pilgrimage ended up in Vrindavan, and the old Brahmana, the young Brahmana, was taking care of the old Brahmana so nicely that the older Brahmana decided he would give his daughter in marriage to the young Brahmana. And there was an intense discussion. And finally, the old Brahmana insisted, and they both came in front of Gopal in Vrindavan, and the older Brahmana made a vow, a promise. Anyway, now they're back in Vijayanagar in South India, where they originated. And finally, the older Brahmana felt the need to tell his family members, and just as the young Brahmin predicted, they didn't agree at all. And they had a town meeting, and both of the parties disagreed, but they agreed that if the deity Gopal would come and witness this promise, then even the son of the older Brahmana, who was trying to convince the townspeople that the young Brahmana was simply a dacoit, he agreed also, because he was an atheist, and he didn't believe that the deity could walk or talk. So he thought that his task was accomplished by this agreement, and he agreed. And that's where we stand. Text 87. After the meeting, the young Brahmana started for Vrindavan. Upon arriving there, he first offered his respectful obeisances to the deity, and then narrated everything in full detail. He said, "My Lord, you are the protector of Brahminical culture, and you are also very merciful. Therefore, kindly show your mercy, your great mercy, by protecting the religious principles of us two Brahmanas." Text 89. "My dear Lord, I am not thinking to become happy by getting the daughter as a bride. I am simply thinking that the Brahman has broken his promise, and that is giving me great pain." Purport. It was not at all the intention of the young Brahmana to get the daughter of the elderly Brahmana in marriage and thus enjoy material happiness and sense gratification. It was not for that reason that the young Brahmana went to Vrindavan to ask the Supreme Personality of Godhead to act as a witness. His only concern was that because the elderly Brahmana had promised something, if Gopal did not bear witness to that transaction, then the older Brahmana would incur a spiritual blemish. Therefore, the young Brahmana wanted protection and help from the deity. The young Brahmana was thus a pure Vaishnava, and he had no desire for sense gratification. He wanted only to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the older Brahmana, who was also a Vaishnava and very much devoted to the Lord. Text 90. The young Brahmana continued, "My dear sir, you are very merciful and you know everything. Therefore, kindly be a witness in this case. A person who knows things as they are and still does not bear witness becomes involved in sinful activities." So innocent, pure-hearted Brahmana, he's accusing the deity. If he doesn't come, then he'll be involved in sinful activities. This is the level of pure devotional service that these Brahmanas were under. Purport. The dealings between a devotee and the Lord are very simple. The young Brahmana said to the Lord, "You know everything, but if you do not bear witness, you will be involved in sinful activities." There is no possibility, however, of the Lord's being involved in sinful activities. A pure devotee, even though he knows everything of the Supreme Lord, can speak with the Lord exactly as if he were a common man. Although the dealings between the Lord and his devotee are always very simple and open, there is formality. All these things happen because of the connection between the Lord and the devotee. Text 91. Lord Krishna replied, "My dear Brahmana, go back to your home and call a meeting of all the men. In that meeting, just try to remember me." Text 92. I shall certainly appear there, and at that time I shall protect the honor of both you Brahmanas by bearing witness to the promise. Text 93. The young Brahmana replied, "My dear sir, even if you appear there as a four-handed Vishnu deity, still none of those people will believe in your words." 94. Only if you go there in this form of Gopal and speak the words from your beautiful face will your testimony be heard by all the people. 95. Lord Krishna said, "I've never heard of a deity's walking from one place to another." The Brahmana replied, "That is true, but how is it that you are speaking to me, although you are a deity?" Text 96. "My dear Lord, you are not a statue. You are directly the son of Maharaj Nanda. Now, for the sake of the old Brahmana, you can do something you have never done before." 97. Shri Gopalji then smiled. and said, "My dear Brahmana, just listen to me. I shall walk behind you, and in this way I shall go with you." Purport. The conversation between Lord Sri Krishna and the Brahmana is proof that the Lord in his Archa Murti, or form made of material elements, is not material. For those elements, although separated from the Lord, are also a part of the Lord's energy, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita. Because the elements are the Lord's own energy, and because there is no difference between the energy and the energetic, the Lord can appear through any element. Just as the sun can act through the sunshine and thus distribute its heat and light, so Krishna, by his inconceivable power, can appear in his original spiritual form in any material element, including stone, wood, paint, gold, silver, and jewels, because the material elements are all his energy. The Shastras warn, Arche, Vishnau, Shiladi, Narakisa. One should never think of the Archa Murti, the deity within the temple, as stone, wood, or any other material element. Because of his advanced devotional position, the younger Brahmana knew that although the deity of Gopal appeared to be stone, he was not stone. He was the son of Nanda Maharaj, Vrajendra Nandana himself. As such, the deity could act exactly as the Lord does in his original form as Krishna. Lord Krishna was talking to the young Brahmana just to test his knowledge about the Archa Vigraha. In other words, those who have understood the science of Krishna, Krishna's name, form, qualities, and so forth, can also talk with the deity. To an ordinary person, however, the deity will appear to be made of stone, wood, or some other material. In the higher sense, since all material elements ultimately emanate from the supreme spiritual entity, nothing is really material. Being omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient, Krishna can deal with his devotee in any form without difficulty. By the mercy of the Lord, the devotee knows perfectly well about the Lord's dealings. Indeed, he can talk face to face with the Lord. Text 98. The Lord continued, "Do not try to see me by turning around. As soon as you see me, I shall remain stationary in that very place. You will know that I am walking behind you by the sound of my ankle bells. Cook 1 kilo of rice daily and offer it. I shall eat that rice and follow behind you." The next day, the Brahmana begged permission from Gopal and started for his country. Gopal followed him, step by step. Can you imagine? Text 102. While Gopal followed the young Brahmana, the tinkling sound of his ankle bells could be heard. The Brahmana became very pleased, and he cooked first-class rice for Gopal to eat. The young Brahmana walked and walked in this way until he eventually arrived in his own country. When he neared his own village, he began to think as follows: "I have now come to my village, and I shall go to my home and tell all the people that the witness has arrived." The Brahmana then began to think that if the people didn't directly see the Gopal deity, they would not believe that he had arrived. But even if Gopal stays here, he thought, there is still nothing to fear. 106. Thinking this, the Brahmana turned to look back, and he saw that Gopal, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was standing there, smiling. Text 107. The Lord told the Brahmana, "Now you can go home. I shall stay here and shall not leave." 108. The young Brahmana then went to the town and informed all the people about Gopal's arrival. Hearing this, the people were struck with wonder. All the townspeople went to see the witness Gopal, and when they saw the Lord actually standing there, they all offered their respectful obeisances. 110. When the people arrived, they were very pleased to see the beauty of Gopal, and when they heard that he had actually walked there, they were all surprised. Then the elderly Brahmana, being very pleased, came forward and immediately fell like a stick in front of Gopal. Thus, in the presence of all the townspeople, Lord Gopal bore witness that the elderly Brahmana had offered his daughter in charity to the young Brahmana. After the marriage ceremony was performed, the Lord informed both Brahmanas, "You two Brahmanas are my eternal servants, birth after birth." Purport. Like these two Brahmanas of Vidyanagar, there are many devotees who are eternal servants of the Lord. They are specifically known as Nitya Siddha, eternally perfect. Although the Nitya Siddhas appear in the material world and seem to be common members of the world, they never forget the Supreme Personality of Godhead in any condition. This is the symptom of a Nitya Siddha. There are two kinds of living entities, Nitya Siddha and Nitya Baddha. The Nitya Siddha never forgets his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whereas the Nitya Baddha is always conditioned, even before creation. He always forgets his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Here the Lord informs the two Brahmanas that they are his servants birth after birth. The phrase birth after birth refers to the material world, because in the spiritual world there is no birth, death, old age, or disease. By the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Nitya Siddha remains within this material world, like an ordinary man. But the only business of the Nitya Siddha is to broadcast the glories of the Lord. This incident appears to be an ordinary story about a marriage transaction involving two ordinary people. However, Krishna accepted the two Brahmanas as his eternal servants. Both Brahmanas took much trouble in these negotiations, just like mundane people, yet they were acting as eternal servants of the Lord. All Nitya Siddhas within this material world may appear to toil like ordinary men, but they never forget their position as servants of the Lord. Another point. The elderly Brahmana belonged to an aristocratic family and was learned and wealthy. The young Brahmana belonged to an ordinary family and was uneducated. But these mundane qualifications do not concern a Nitya Siddha engaged in the service of the Lord. We have to accept the fact that the Nitya Siddhas are completely distinct from the Nitya Baddhas, who are ordinary human beings. Srila Narottam Das Thakur confirms this statement. Gorang Gyara Sangi Gane Nitya Siddha Karimane Seyaya Brajendra Sutapash Shri Gauda Mandala Bhumi Yeba Jani Chintamani Tarahaya Braja Bhumi Vas. One who accepts the associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as Nitya Siddhas is certain to be elevated to the spiritual kingdom to become an associate of the Supreme Lord. One should also know that Gauda Mandala Bhumi, those places in Bengal where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stayed, are equal to Brajabhumi or Vrindavan. There is no difference between the inhabitants of Vrindavan and those of Gauda Mandala Bhumi or Sridham Mayapur. Text 114. The Lord continued, I have become very much pleased by the truthfulness of you both. Now you can ask for a benediction. Thus, with great pleasure, the two Brahmanas begged for a benediction. Text 115. The Brahmanas said, please remain here so that all people of the world will know how merciful you are to your servants. Text 116. Lord Gopal stayed and the two brahmanas engaged in his service. After hearing of the incident, many people from different countries began to come to see Gopal. Text 117. Eventually the king of that country heard this wonderful story, and he also came to see Gopal, and thus became very satisfied. The king constructed a nice temple, and regular service was executed. Gopal became very famous under the name of Säksi-gopäla, the witness Gopal. 119. Thus Säksi-gopäla stayed at Vidyanagar and accepted service for a very long time. Purport. This city of Vidyanagar is situated in Trilangadesh, South India, on the bank of the river Godavari. The place where the Godavari flows into the Bay of Bengal is called Kotadesh. The Orissa kingdom was very powerful, and Kotadesh was the capital of Orissa. It was then known as Vidyanagar. Formerly this city was situated on the southern side of the river Godavari. At that time, King Purushottam Dev managed to control Orissa and appoint a government. The present city of Vidyanagar is on the southeast side of the river, only 20 to 25 miles from Rajamundry. During the time of Maharaj Prataparudra, Sri Ramananda Roy was the governor there. Vijayanagar is not identical with Vidyanagar. Text 120. Later there was a fight, and this country was conquered by King Purushottam Dev of Orissa. That king was victorious over the king of Vidyanagar, and he took possession of his throne, the Manikya Singhasan, which was bedecked with many jewels. Text 122. King Purushottam Dev was a great devotee and was advanced in the civilization of the Aryans. He begged at the lotus feet of Gopal, "Please come to my kingdom." 123. When the king begged him to come to his kingdom, Gopal, who was already obliged for his devotional service, accepted his prayer. Thus the king took the Gopal deity and went back to Kataka. After winning the Manikya throne, King Purushottam Dev took it to Jagannath Puri and presented it to Lord Jagannath. In the meantime, he also established regular worship of the Gopal deity at Katak. Text 125. When the Gopal deity was installed at Katak, the queen of Purushottam Dev went to see him, and with great devotion presented various kinds of ornaments. Text 126. The queen had a very valuable jewel which she wore on her nose, and she wished to give it to Gopal. She then began to think as follows: if there were a hole in the deity's nose, I could transfer the pearl to him. 128. Considering this, the queen offered his obeisances to Gopal and returned to her palace. That night, she dreamed that Gopal appeared and began to speak to her as follows: during my childhood, my mother made a hole in my nose and with great endeavor set a pearl there. 130. That very hole is still there, and you can use it to set the pearl you desired to give me. 131. After dreaming this, the queen explained it to her husband, the king. Both the king and the queen then went to the temple with the pearl. Seeing the hole in the nose of the deity, they set the pearl there, and being very pleased, held a great festival. Since then, Gopal has been situated in the city of Katak, and he has been known ever since as Säksi-gopäla. Text 134. Thus Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard the narration of Gopal's activities. Both he and his personal devotees became very pleased. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was sitting before the Gopal deity, all the devotees saw him and the deity as being of the same form. They were of the same complexion, and both had gigantic bodies. Both wore saffron cloth, and both were very grave. 137. The devotees saw that both Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Gopal were brilliantly effulgent and had eyes like lotuses. They were both absorbed in ecstasy, and both their faces resembled full moons. 138. When Nityananda saw the Gopal deity and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in that way, he began to exchange remarks with the devotees, all of whom were smiling. Text 139. Thus, with great pleasure, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu passed that night in the temple. After seeing the Mangalarati ceremony in the morning, he started on his journey. Text 140. In his book Chaitanya Bhagavat, Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur has vividly described the places visited by the Lord on the way to Bhubaneswar. Purport. In his book Chaitanya Bhagavat, Anchakanda, Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur has very nicely described the Lord's journey en route to Kataka or Katak. On that journey, the Lord visited a place known as Balihasta or Balakatichati. Balakatichati. He then visited the city of Bhubaneswar, where Lord Shiva's temple is located. The temple of Bhubaneswar is situated about 5 to 6 miles from Balakatichati. The temple of Lord Shiva is mentioned in the Skanda Purana, in the narration about the Lord's garden and the one mango tree. A king named Kashiraj, wanted to fight with Lord Krishna, and consequently he took shelter of Lord Shiva to acquire the power to fight the Lord. Being pleased with his worship, Lord Shiva helped him fight Krishna. Lord Shiva's name is Ashutosh, which indicates that he is very easily satisfied when one worships him, regardless of the purpose, and he gives his devotee whatever benediction the devotee wants. Therefore, people are generally very fond of worshipping Lord Shiva. Thus, Kashiraj was helped by Lord Shiva, but in the fight with Lord Krishna, he was not only defeated, but killed. In this way, the weapon known as Pashupatastra was baffled, and Krishna set fire to the city of Kashi. Later, Lord Shiva became conscious of his mistake in helping Kashiraj, and he begged Lord Krishna's forgiveness. As a benediction from Lord Krishna, he received a place known as Ekamra Kanana. Later, the kings of the Keshari dynasty established their capital there, and for many hundreds of years they reigned over the state of Orissa. Text 141. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu arrived at Kamalapur, he took his bath in the Bharginadi river and left his sannyas staff in the hands of Lord Nityananda. Purport. In the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Anchakanda, chapter 2, it is said that when Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu arrived at Sri Bhubaneswar, he visited the temple of Lord Shiva, known as Gupta Kashi, the concealed Varanasi. Lord Shiva established this as a place of pilgrimage by bringing water from all the holy places and creating the lake known as Bindu Sarovara. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took his bath in this lake, feeling a great regard for Lord Shiva. From the spiritual point of view, people still go to take a bath in this lake. Actually, by taking a bath there, one becomes very healthy even from the material viewpoint. Taking a bath and drinking the water of this lake can cure any disease of the stomach. Regular bathing certainly cures indigestion. The river Bargi, or Bargi Nadi, came to be known as Danda Bhanga Nadi, after Lord Chaitanya bathed in its waters. It is situated 6 miles north of Jagannath Puri. The reason for the change in names is given as follows. Text 142 and 143. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to the temple of Lord Shiva, known as Kapoteshwar, Nityananda Prabhu, Kapoteshwar, Nityananda Prabhu, who was keeping his sannyas staff in custody, broke the staff in 3 parts and threw it into the river Barginadi. Later, this river became known as Danda Bhanga Nadi. Purport: the mystery of the sannyas danda staff of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has been explained by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the order of sannyas from a Mayavadi sannyasi. The Mayavadi sannyasis generally carry 1 staff, or danda. Taking advantage of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's absence, Srila Nityananda Prabhu broke the staff into 3 parts and threw it into the river, later known as Danda Bhanga Nadi. In the sannyas order there are 4 divisions: Kutichak, Bahudak, Hangsa, and Paramahansa. Only when the sannyasi remains on the Kutichak and Bahudak platforms can he carry a staff. However, when one is elevated to the status of Hangsa or Paramahansa, after touring and preaching the bhakti cult, he must give up the sannyas staff. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is therefore said, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahe Anya. 2 personalities, Srimati Radharani and Sri Krishna, are combined in the incarnation of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Therefore, considering Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to be an extraordinary person, Lord Nityananda Prabhu did not wait for the Paramahansa stage. He reasoned that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is automatically on the Paramahansa stage. Therefore, he does not need to carry the sannyas danda. This is the reason Sri Nityananda Prabhu broke the staff into 3 pieces and threw it into the water. Text 144. After seeing the temple of Jagannath from a distant place, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately became ecstatic. After offering obeisances to the temple, he began to dance in the ecstasy of love of God. Purport: the word Deola refers to the temple where the Supreme Personality of Godhead is situated. The present temple of Jagannath Puri was constructed by King Ananga Bhima. Historians say this temple must have been constructed at least 2,000 years ago. During the time of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the small buildings surrounding the original temple had not been constructed, nor was the high platform in front of the temple present during the time of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Text 145. All the devotees became ecstatic in the association of Lord Chaitanya, and thus absorbed in love of God, they were dancing and singing while going along the main road. Text 146. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu laughed, cried, danced, and made many ecstatic vibrations and sounds. Although the temple was only 6 miles away, to him the distance seemed thousands of miles. Purport: when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in ecstasy, he considered one moment to last as long as 12 years. After seeing the Jagannath temple from a distant place, the Lord became so ecstatic that he considered the 6-mile path many thousands of miles long. Text 147. Thus, walking and walking, the Lord eventually arrived at the place known as Ataranala. Ataranala. Arriving there, he expressed his external consciousness, speaking to Sri Nityananda Prabhu. Purport. At the entrance to Jagannath Puri is a bridge with 18 arches called Ataranala. Atara means 18. Ataranala. Text 148. When Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had thus regained external consciousness, he asked Lord Nityananda Prabhu, "Please return my staff." Nityananda Prabhu then replied, "It has been broken into 3 parts." Text 149. Nityananda Prabhu said, "When you fell down in ecstasy, I caught you, but both of us together fell upon the staff." Text 150. Thus the staff broke under our weight. Where the pieces have gone, I cannot say. Lord Nityananda. 151. It is certainly because of my offense that your staff was broken. Now you can punish me on this account as you think proper. After hearing the story about how his staff had been broken, the Lord expressed a little sadness and, displaying a bit of anger, began to speak as follows. Purport. Sri Nityananda Prabhu considered Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's acceptance of sannyas to be useless. He therefore relieved the Lord of the trouble of carrying the staff. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu expressed anger because he wanted to teach all other sannyasis that they should not give up the staff before attaining the platform of Paramahansa. Seeing that the regulative principles could be slackened by such action, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to carry the staff personally. However, Nityananda broke it. For this reason, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu displayed a little anger. It is said in the Bhagavad Gita 3:21, Yad yadachurite shreshtas tat tadeva tado janaha. Whatever great people do, others follow. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to follow the Vedic principles strictly in order to save inexperienced neophytes who try to imitate Paramahansas. Text 153. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "You have all benefited me by bringing me to Nilachala. However, my only possession was that one staff, and you have not kept it." 154. So all of you should go before or behind me to see Lord Jagannath. I shall not go with you. Text 155. Mukundadara told Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, "My Lord, you should go ahead and allow all the others to follow. We shall not go with you." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then began to walk very swiftly before all the other devotees. No one could understand the real purpose of the two lords, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu. Text 157. The devotees could not understand why Nityananda Prabhu broke the staff, why Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu permitted him to do so, or why, after permitting him, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became angry. Text 158. The pastime of the breaking of the staff is very deep. Only one whose devotion is fixed upon the lotus feet of the two lords can understand it. Purport. One who understands Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu in reality can understand their identity as well as the breaking of the staff. All the previous acharyas, being induced to engage themselves fully in the service of the Lord, gave up attachment for material life, and thus accepted the staff, which signifies full engagement of the mind, speech, and body in the service of the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the regulative principles of the renounced order of life. That is completely clear However, in the Paramahansa stage, there is no need to accept a danda, staff, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was certainly in the Paramahansa stage. Nonetheless, to indicate that everyone should take sannyas at the end of life in order to engage fully in the service of the Lord, even Paramahansas like Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his confidential devotees follow the regulated principles unfailingly. Indeed, that was his purpose. Nityananda Prabhu, who was his eternal servitor, believed that there was no need for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to accept the staff and to declare to the world that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was above all regulations. He broke it into 3 pieces. The pastime known as Danda Bhanga Lila is thus explained by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Text 159. The glories of Lord Gopal, who is merciful to Brahmanas, are very great. The narration of Säksi-gopäla was spoken by Nityananda Prabhu and heard by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Purport. There are 4 points of instruction one should consider in the story of Säksi-gopäla. First, the deity Archa Vigraha of Sri Gopal is eternally Satchidananda Vigraha, the transcendental form of the Lord. Second, the deity surpasses material regulated principles and extends the reality of transcendental principles. Third, one can be situated in a transcendental position after becoming a Brahmana. But as a Brahmana, one has to follow the regulated principles very strictly. Lastly, Brahmanya Deva indicates Lord Sri Krishna himself, who is worshipped thus: Namo Brahmanya Devaya, Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha, Jagatitaya Krishnaya, Govindaya, Namo Namaha. This indicates that a devotee who is under the protection of Krishna is automatically situated as a Brahmana, and such a Brahmana is not illusioned. This is factual. Text 160. One who hears this narration of Lord Gopal with faith and love very soon attains the lotus feet of Lord Gopal. Text 161. Sri Rupa Raghunatha Padiyara Ash, Caitanya-caritämrta, Kahe Krishna Das. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Das, narrate Sri Caitanya-caritämrta, following in their footsteps. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Caitanya-caritämrta, Madhya-lila, 5th chapter, describing the activities of Säksi-gopäla. Jai Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Jai Sri Nityananda Prabhu, Jai Säksi-gopäla, Jai Brahmanas, eternal Brahmana servitors of Säksi-gopäla, Jai Nityananda Prabhu, Jai Dandabhagya, Hari Hari Bol, Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Okay, Hare Krishna, everybody. We'll end our reading for tonight, and tomorrow we'll begin 6th chapter, the liberation of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, which is a fantastic chapter of Caitanya-caritämrta. So, our trustee, Abhay Das Brahmachari, is holding the open mic in his hand, waiting for the flowery words to pour from the devotees in terms of their reflections and discussion and questions and whatever.
First is something from Gopi Chandra Devi Dasi.
Hare Krishna, Gopi Chandra.
She says, Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and to you. Could you please explain further why Nityananda Prabhu considered Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's taking sannyas useless? Thank you in advance, your servant Gopi Chandra.
Well, Nityananda Prabhu could not accept that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu needed to take the external trappings of a sannyasi, because he knew that he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is Leela. The Lord is acting what is called Nara-lila, acting as a human being, even though he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And all of us see that, and we act accordingly and reciprocate accordingly. But Nityananda Prabhu is Lord Balaram in the spiritual world, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna. So he knew that Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And of course there's many reasons. There's many reasons, and people will see the same pastime, different reasons, according to their relationship, according to their level of realization. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur purposely explained in the purport that we just read that Lord Nityananda did not accept that Lord Chaitanya needed to carry the sannyas danda. He took it to be an external burden, an unnecessary effort for the Lord to take. He was always trying to serve Lord Chaitanya and always trying to make his life as comfortable as possible. And anyone who has taken sannyas, I carried my danda for a long time, and it's a trouble to carry a danda all the time wherever you go, whatever you do. But then after a certain number of years, generally the sannyasis, especially those who travel and preach, beginning from that stage of development, they usually don't take the danda anymore. There's actually an injunction that you're only supposed to take the danda for a certain number of years, 10 years or something like that. I don't remember the exact number of years, but for some certain number of years. And then after that, you're not supposed to take the danda. So that was the idea. Lord Nityananda saw that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was better than a sannyasa, better than a paramahansa, better than a hansa or paramahansa. He was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Why did he have to take a danda to carry something? It was like it demeaned him. So he broke the danda, threw it in the danda bhanga, so that the Lord can be facilitated. He did it to please the Lord, to serve the Lord. On the other hand, the Lord was trying to set the example of sannyasis, especially he just recently took sannyas. So he was trying to teach the sannyasis that they should carry the danda, especially in the beginning stages. So everything that Lord Chaitanya did was the perfect example of how to be a devotee in all statuses of life. But sometimes he would just act like no one else could act. And Lord Nityananda and he used to have sometimes these levels of almost comical exchanges. Very difficult to understand. That's as far as I can go. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Ramo Hare Ramo. Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama Hare Rama. Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna Hare Hare. Hare Rama Hare Ramo, Rama Ramo, Hare Hare. Anything else from anybody? Okay, well, once I usually do Caitanya-caritämrta ki jai, there's somebody else that says something, so I'll wait a couple of minutes to see whether they're composing something on their phones or whatever. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Silent crowd tonight. Except for our seagulls. Okay, Sri Chaitanya, it works every time.
This is a short comment from Saloni Sachi Sundari.
Saloni Sachi Sundari, Hare Krishna, thank you very much for reciprocating with me and doing something.
This is beautiful Leela of Sri Gopal and then appearing in the dream of the Queen.
Yes. And interesting, isn't it? Generally speaking, you can't give anything to the deity that you've personally worn. What to speak of put in your on your nose, you know? It's not done. But this is a special person, very special, intimate, and apparently she didn't notice that there was a hole in the nose to put this pearl. So this is intimate. This is intimate stuff, intimate devotional service. And like one of the purports said, the Nityasiddha devotees, they may appear to be ordinary people in some walk of life, but they never forget the Lord from the beginning of their life. They always remember life after life. Even if Krishna keeps them in the material world, they're always serving him, birth after birth. So yes, that's a very intimate pastime. Okay, anything else? Okay, I got things to do. Sri Caitanya-caritämrta ki jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Hari Bol. Thank you everyone. We'll see you tomorrow night. Same place and same station. Same time. Everything the same, like lines in stone. See you tomorrow. Hare Krishna.
One thing from Sudevi Dasi. Just came. He says, Dear Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. It's hard for me to focus, and this is a test. My mom is in Canada not well, and I am not able to go. The border is closed. All I can do is pray for her. Please send your mercy to Mom.
There is no physical barriers in devotional service. So your pure devotion for your mom, or your care, your loving care for your mom will not go unnoticed by Krishna, and he will protect her. Because he's in the heart of every living being, and especially when a person is intimately connected to a pure devotee of Krishna, then Krishna takes care of that person from within the heart. Because he knows what everybody's doing, and he knows everything. So I will pray for the protection and safety of your mother, and but you don't have anything to worry about, even if I wasn't to pray. Your prayers and your devotional love is sufficient to protect your mother, believe me. These are some of the things that the COVID is doing, that is actually forcing us to take shelter of internal methodology or the internal energy of the Lord. In this way, it's special mercy. Okay, again, thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow. And stay safe, stay well, stay happy. Hare Krishna. See you tomorrow. Haribol.